Hello, everybody. Welcome back. Good to have you here. So, today we're going to be back in Africa, specifically West Africa, where today we are going to talk about the Songhai. So, the Songhai, let's get into some early history. Again, this is an empire that will develop over time in West Africa, and its height will be in the mid 15th to the late 16th century. Basically, we go around the city of Gao, which is located on the Niger River, very important river in this area. This gives you an idea of, where this is in today's world. So here's Gao, okay, and here's the river, which eventually flows down into here. And Gao was founded around the year 800 or so. And around the year 1100, the kings of Gao converted to Islam, which is going to be very important in the area. And we'll be talking about that later. But in the 1300s, this was eventually absorbed into the growing empire of Mali, which we already talked about. But it was never really like 100% conquered. They resisted fairly often. Mali had to try to put down rebellion after rebellion. As you can see here, this is some of a military, structure for defense that was erected. And then eventually in the early 1400s, they are able to break away and slowly but surely morph into an empire by the mid 1400s. And the guy that really expanded this was their king, Sunni Ali, or Soni Ali. I've seen both spellings, but I'm just going to stick with Sunni Ali. He ruled during a very long reign from 1464 to 1492. And really, the expansion here came because of Sunni Ali's transformation of the military and doing new military things that in this part of West Africa really hadn't been done before. First and foremost, he's going to massively expand his army and have a standing military. So there are soldiers that is their job. He also brings in cavalry, which in Africa you really didn't get a lot because there aren't a lot of native horses. However, because of Islam and the links to the Middle East, they're able to bring in horses and develops a pretty strong cavalry. He also has one of the only navies in Africa, and a lot of the navy does focus on the Niger River. However, they will patrol the waters outside of West and North Africa in the Atlantic. So again, really doing new things that we haven't seen been done before. And he has a kind of a tactic that we've seen in a lot of places. Look, if I come into this area and I'm looking to expand and you're willing to go along with me, we're cool, resist me and I crush you. And as a result, he will eventually have the largest empire in West African history. And as you can see, it is absolutely huge. And you see, we're starting right here, right? In this part of Gao. This is where we start. And we get all the way out to the Atlantic, which no other Western African empires really did. And really just a massive, massive area. However, when we look at the governance here, it was very, very important. At the top was an absolute monarch, and they did use Sharia law here. And much of the government system was that of using ministers in different departments to run various things. Most often, they seem to use the practice that we see in a variety of other places of eunuchs. And of course, the idea of using eunuchs is that they can't have families of their own. And as a result, we will be less likely to cause a revolt. And the cabinet divisions were interesting. Things like you had cabinets that oversaw agriculture, the army, taking care of the forests, wages, government purchases, property, as well as ministering to foreigners. Local officials would be in charge of policing and monitoring standards, weights, and measures, as well as the craft guilds of different tribes. The provinces were often governed by local chiefs because you still had a variety of different tribal groups here. And it was a way to, again, give relative local autonomy as long as you were paying your taxes and listen to the government officials. We were good. And the local chiefs were also responsible for collecting tribute and stuff like that. And as a result, they'd be able to remain in power. And they focused a lot on the land. There was lots of irrigation projects to promote agriculture. And it was a really, really efficient way of doing things. However, the big issues that they tend to have here were succession issues. Technically, the throne was supposed to go to the eldest son. And if you had more than one son, that could relate into some problems. So, for instance, there was a total of 9 Songhai rulers, but 6 of them were overthrown and assassinated. So, you would have those types of issues like we often see in monarchies. And as a result, the empire itself will be relatively short-lived. Some of the last couple of leaders were particularly bad, and because you had this dynastic struggle, you had some civil wars. The other 2 big issues were outside powers. So during the late 1400s into the 1500s, we do have the rise of Portugal, and they are creating trading posts on the outside. They have a strong military, they have a strong navy, and they start chipping away at the areas that they control. But the big issue was the rise of the Empire of Morocco. And under Ahmad al-Mansur al-Dahabi, they were able to really invade down, as you can see, come all the way down in order to conquer Gal. And first of all, we haven't talked about it in a little while. Look how far the Ottoman Empire came out, by the way. Look, all the way out to Spain. And so the area of red is where they 100% control, and the other areas where they kind of dominate. But they come down, they take the major cities of Djenné and Gal, and really it comes down to technology. Why did they fall? Well, they had the cavalry and these great things, but for the most part, they were still using swords and spears and things like that. And al-Dahabi had muskets and cannon, and that's the tale of the tape. So a relatively large empire, but for the most part, pretty short-lived. However, they'll have a lot of influence culturally, which I'll be getting into my next video. So hopefully that gives you a little bit of an idea of this empire, and I'll see you guys again soon.